A land, for thousands of years, has been uniquely sculpted from time and isolation. One of the most astonishing environments on planet Earth. Lost in the vast Pacific, it is home to a vast array of wildlife. Some familiar, others seen nowhere else. A sensitive ecosystem, once untouched, now facing unintentional change from human activity. Change that is studied and acted upon by conservationists all over the world in order to protect this astonishing ancient land. The Galapagos Islands straddle the equator 600 miles off the coast of Ecuador. Consisting of 18 main islands and over 100 islets like this one, locally known as Kicker Rock. Kicker Rock is located 3 miles off the shore of the main island of San Cristobal. Although not inhabited by humans, it serves as a nesting ground for numerous bird populations. Populations consisting of mainly seabirds, such as the masked booby, and its cousin, the blue-footed booby. Moving closer to the main island of San Cristobal, familiar species can be seen. The great blue heron. During cold North American winters, the great blue heron migrates south for a more efficient food supply. Tall and majestic, this heron wades in the water searching for its next meal. San Cristobal is the 5th largest island in the Galapagos chain. With about 6,000 residents, San Cristobal is the second most populated. San Cristobal's ecosystem showcase variations with increased elevation. These variations are known as vegetation zones. Each zone has unique characteristics. The zones are mainly categorized by precipitation rates, but along with it, noticeable changes in vegetation and wildlife occur. San Cristobal has a maximum of 720 meters in elevation, and even though it's not the largest island, 4 vegetation zones can be easily noticed. In the sandy coastal zone, many bird species can be seen. The great frigate bird is a common resident in San Cristobal. 4 foot long with a wingspan of 7 feet, the frigate bird is a large and dominant seabird. Although not endemic, the Galapagos shelters one of the largest frigate bird colony populations in the world. The coastal zone also inhabits a large population of one of the most historic birds in the scientific community, the Galapagos finch. Charles Darwin is known as the grandfather of evolution and natural selection. He developed many studies and conclusions while observing wildlife in the Galapagos. Arriving in the Galapagos in 1831, Darwin was only 20 years young. Many of his studies were conducted on the island of San Cristobal. One study in particular was the observation of the Galapagos finch. Darwin noticed that the beaks of the finch were completely different from one another. He noticed the diets of each finch corresponded with the size of their beak. Ground finches consume seeds and have robust, flat beaks. The tree finches have a more curved beak for insects and grasping purposes. And the finches with probing bills use their beak to extract insects from small holes. Difficult to differentiate in the field, the variety of Galapagos finches can be seen all over the island. Darwin's observation of the beaks paved the way for modern-day natural science and is the base of his theory of evolution. Increasing in elevation on the northern side of the island of San Cristobal, there is a change from the coastal zone to the arid zone. The arid zone is the most extensive zone in all the islands. Hot temperatures and dry landscape keeps the plant variety to a minimum. Shrubs, salt bushes, cactuses, and the occasional Palo Santo tree are the most common type of vegetation. The prickly pear cactus tree is one of the larger plants in the arid zone, reaching heights of 15 feet and can live for hundreds of years. The cactus are utilized by bird species for nesting, protection, and a food source. The arid zone soil is filled with iron and nutrients, but with the low rates of precipitation, only certain plants are able to survive. As inhabitable as the arid zone sounds, one of the most iconic species of the Galapagos is able to exist. An ancient creature with prehistoric resemblance, the giant tortoise is the oldest species of the Galapagos. In the arid wastelands, the giant tortoise is able to go without water for months at a time. Only seen in the Galapagos, the species of tortoise are the largest of all the tortoises in the world, weighing in around 660 pounds. At this weight, the tortoise's lifestyle is very slow, and the energy it takes to move makes it difficult to travel far. This 4-year-old giant tortoise feeds on low vegetation, which is seen throughout the arid zones. Although the giant tortoise prefers a diet of poison apple leaves and fruits, it will consume any plant that is edible. Since the arrival of humans in the 1800s, the number of individual tortoises went from 250,000 to a mere 20,000. Today, with the laws protecting them and careful monitoring from biologists, there is a small increase in populations each year. Young tortoises are held in wildlife centers to ensure healthy growth and a long life. Increasing in elevation once again, there is a change in the vegetation zone. The transition zone is a mix between the arid and the humid zone. Within this zone, there's a gradual change in vegetation and an increase in precipitation. In the humid zone, diversity in plant species become abundant. Rich green, leafy plants. Trees, ferns, swampy plants, and many species of flowers. But within this humid ecosystem lies a community that plays a huge role in the Galapagos. Meet Caesar. Caesar is a part of an Ecuadorian conservation organization called Wanton Sasha. Wanton Sasha is based all around the mainland in Ecuador, and Caesar works with the only station in the Galapagos on San Cristobal Island. Another worker for Wanton Sasha is Eduardo. Eduardo has lived in the Galapagos his entire life and dedicates all of his time working with Wanton Sasha. He does this to bring back the ecosystem he remembers as a kid. Together, Caesar, Eduardo, and other team members educate and work with volunteers from all over the world to help manage the San Cristobal natural habitat and to lessen the negative impact from human activity. Before working each day, Caesar and Eduardo inform the volunteers the reasoning behind their labor. In today's work, Caesar and Eduardo give instruction on how to properly use a machete. The volunteers will use the machete to eradicate a non-native and extremely invasive blackberry plant, locally known as mora. Clearing the mora helps native species thrive and clears land for future reforestation projects. Over the years, Wanton Sasha has cleared hundreds of acres of mora and have replaced it with native plant species. Wanton Sasha works with the National Park System to increase the conservation of San Cristobal's environment. Lydia is another Wanton Sasha worker, and she informs the volunteers the National Park's purpose. Volunteers work with the National Park to help the ongoing effort of reforestation on San Cristobal. Today the volunteers are weeding the bags to help the endemic plants grow. Once the plant is grown to a certain height and is healthy, the National Park distributes the endemics to the 3 ecosystems, depending on where they belong. The volunteers work hands-on with professionals to learn the purposes of their work. The following day, the other half of Wanton Sasha goes to the greenhouse to work on another project. This project encourages local farmers to grow easier, environmentally managed crops. Workers prepare bags for coffee plants. Land is cleared and prepared for storage of more plants, endemic plants and coffee plants. The volunteers prepare bags of soil for the seeds and are a major help to the national park. The leaders of Wanton Sasha and the national park guide the volunteers into becoming educated conservationists. Cacao trees are becoming another plant favored for farming by the national park. Though limited on San Cristobal, Wanton Sasha works to increase the numbers of cacao plants in order to encourage farmers to make the switch. Cacao, like coffee plants, are easier to manage in the environment. Cacao is produced in select areas of the world where the soil is rich and the humidity is high. Since it is scarce, cacao can be sold for production of chocolate at a high price. The national park notices this and encourages farmers to produce cacao. Both of them will benefit. Cacao, like coffee plants, are easier to manage in the environment. Cacao is produced in select areas of the world where the soil is rich and the humidity is high. Since it is scarce, cacao can be sold for production of chocolate at a high price. The national park notices this and encourages farmers to produce cacao. Both of them will benefit. Once the 100 branches are cut, the cacao leaves are then cut, and the stem is dipped into a growth hormone to produce roots. Once the worker adds the growth hormone, the plant is put into a soil bag and then shipped to the greenhouse for pickup by the farmers.
Here, they plant inactive endemic plants for reforestation in the different ecosystems. In orientation, you learned that San Cristobal has 3 ecosystems, and in each ecosystem, there are differences. On the coast, there is dry forest. Transition zone, it is a humid forest, and the pampa is the rainy part. The person responsible for this greenhouse is the technician of the national park. As you can see, he's the only one attending to all of this. Of course, he needs help. We have come to help for the benefit of San Cristobal. Here, we don't have production of cacao. There can only be one trunk for production. If there is one trunk, the tree will produce. We have 2 cacao trees with many trunks, but no production. In the Galapagos, there are few plants capable of producing cacao. We are confined to 7 farms that can grow plants we need, and they only have 1 or 2 plants each. We want to produce more plants here because the soil and humidity is good for production. What we do is cut 100 branches from the trees and clone them to grow.
A diverse, isolated environment, rich with exceptional vegetation growth and wildlife. The Galapagos has been the home to unique species for hundreds of years. With beautiful terrain and rapid changes of climate zones, the islands showcase an ecosystem seen nowhere else. Through the vision of a motivated conservation group and the labor from the volunteers around the world, the Galapagos Islands has shown prosperity in the ongoing effort for nature and humans to become as one.